Hey guys, back with another cEDH video. I'm doing something a little bit more like I said I was going to a while back, but I never really got around to. I've started the idea of kind of brewing off the wall, more obscure, interesting cEDH decks that maybe take a different angle. Building them, trying them out a little bit, and then try to make a video on it to give at least something that I have a little insight on. So for this deck tech, it's Malcolm Alluring Scoundrel. Malcolm Alluring Scoundrel, one colorless, one blue, Siren Pirate, flash flying. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you put a chorus counter on it. Draw a card, discard a card. If there are 4 more course counters on Malcolm, you may cast the card discarded without paying its mana cost. Now, there are some really big upsides with this commander and really big downsides. So I'll kind of just highlight the commander itself for a second here. So the big thing is it is a 2-1, which is less than ideal. Bowmasters does hose this deck. So there are quite a few things in the deck to be able to mess around with that, and some things I might do in the future, depending on how I decide to play this deck, or if I decide to shelve it for a little bit. I'm not sure. But I've been enjoying it so far, so I'm still trying to work on it. But it is a 2-1, it dies to Bowmasters, and just about anything else sneezing on it. The second thing is you have to have 4 or more counters before you actually get to get anything for free. So ideally, this goal is to land this commander turn 1, and you could do it at flash speed. Move to turn 2, get your first counter on it, and then as quickly as we can, get that 4th counter and get a free spell. Now, you might be wondering, well, what do we do with that? Well, first off, we're playing a couple creatures that we have for win cons, like Jace and Laboratory Maniac. I'll go into depth a little bit about the creatures, but I kind of want to go over the idea first, so that if you're interested in the video, you can continue watching and learn more about it. And if you think it's not quite up your alley, or you don't think it's very good, then you won't have to waste your time watching the whole thing. But pretty much, Jace and Laboratory Maniac both have you win if you have no cards in your library. So the main win condition is to storm off infinite turns, win with an empty library. And there's many different things we could do and ways to get there. Um, the other win condition for the deck is Prologue to Phyresis, which is each opponent gets a poison counter, draw a card. So you give everybody a poison counter, and then you play Flux Channeler, which says whenever you cast a non-creature spell, proliferate. So if you're able to cast a bunch of spells after giving everybody a poison counter, then you could just proliferate them to 10 poison counters and they die and they lose the game. So those are the 2 main win conditions. We're either trying to draw from an empty library or we're trying to proliferate the poison counters. You also get to proliferate the chorus counters on the commander, which is very helpful. So Flux Channeler ends up being a very important piece in the deck. There's a chance I may end up adding Drift of Phantasms or something into the deck just to be able to get this card more reliably. So other than that, you might be like, okay, well, that's kind of weird. Like, that doesn't seem very good. And maybe it's not. But it performs very well, if I could be honest. And the reason that it performs well is because the other part of the deck is just control. It's just heavy, heavy control. We are trying to get to that win condition and control the entire game before that happens. So things like Fairy Mastermind, Wan Shi Tong, Ledger Shredder, being able to draw us cards, being able to use Hydroelectric Specimen to protect our commander, Tidebinder to stifle someone and stop them from being able to use that ability in the future, Subtlety as a counter spell. A lot of these are that. High Fae and Valley Flood Caller are basically to give us flash. As you'll see, or probably already can because it's on the screen, one of our main win conditions is to draw our entire library. So being able to have flash speed with our entire library it's very, very, very hard to be stopped. And a Boro Breeze Caller is in here because you can actually combo a Boro Breeze Caller or you can combo trade routes with Mystic Sanctuary. And the way that you're able to do this is if you have enough islands, which you have to control 3 or more islands, then when this land enters, you get to put an instant sorcery on top of your graveyard. So what you can do is continuously stack an extra turn spell on top of your library, use Malcolm's ability, draw pitch. You get an extra turn after this one, that card goes to the graveyard. You then use a Boros Breezecaller or trade routes to bounce Mystic Sanctuary to your hand, and then replay it as your land for turn. This also can win without the commander if you have enough mana, but that's not really something that I'm aiming for. But it is an option where if you get something like Time Warp, it's 7 mana, infinite turns, which is, good to have as an option. So that's kind of the creatures. There's not really much else to talk about. Like I said, you can clone stuff with Mockingbird. Spellskite protects our commander. Spellseeker gets us spells. Notably, it can go. Oh, it cannot grab. Never mind. It cannot grab any of the extra turn spells. I don't believe, but it does allow you to just get interaction, get different helpful spells, set yourself up. So that's it for the creatures. For the sorceries, you're going to notice a big trend in here. They're either really strong spells, or they take extra turns, or they get extra turns. So Capture of Zhang Zhao takes an extra turn. Enter the Infinite, we'll talk about in a second. Expropriate, extra turns. Flash Photography can copy something that you have at instant speed. You basically get a token copy of target permanent. It can clone something else that someone else controls. So it is important to know that that is still a really strong ability, but it's mostly there to copy our things, being able to get a second Flux Channeler, being able to have a second Spellskite to make it even harder for them to be able to interact with us, that kind of stuff. This isn't a card that I've played with much, as you could probably tell from how I'm talking about what you could do with it. But, I still think that it's a really good card and I'm testing it out. Flood of Recollections, return instant sorcery from your graveyard to your hand. You get to cast this, it goes to exile, but you get back an extra turn spell, something like Temporal Manipulation to get an extra turn. And then you get to go again. That's basically what it's there for. Get Probe, look at a player's hand, draw a card. It's basically just there to see if the coast is clear. Mnemonic Deluge, you get to exile instant sorcery from your graveyard, copy it 3 times. So things like exiling a time stretch and then taking 6 turns. Pretty good. Personal Tutor allows you to search for a sorcery card, reveal it, and put it on top. You're getting one of these extra turn spells, putting it on top, hitting with Malcolm, draw pitching, and then casting the extra turn spell for free. Razi Eldrazi, ridiculous card. It's a sorcery 9 and 3 colorless. Can't be countered. Destroy a permanent. Target player draws 4 cards. Take an extra turn after this one, and then exile it. So really, really strong extra turn spell. Seagate allows you to draw equal to your hand +1, and then you have no maximum hand size for the rest of the game. This could be just a really strong spell for you to play off the first one. There's a good chance that with this kind of a deck, you're going to need to politic. So maybe being like, okay, well, I'll hit you, but I guarantee that you'll get another turn. I'm not going to take an extra turn or anything. That might be something good enough where you'll be able to politic with them to let you hit with Malcolm and resolve an extra spell. And Seagate Restoration is a pretty good balancing act of not winning you the game, but giving you enough agency in the game where you're going to get another turn almost guaranteed. So very good. Plus, it's a land on the backside, so it really doesn't hurt to have in the deck. Solve the Equation gets you an instant sorcery for you to cast. Temporal Manipulation, take an extra turn. Temporal Mastery, take an extra turn. Take 2 extra turns, take an extra turn. One thing worth noting if you do play the deck, some of these say take an extra turn, some of these say target player. So you need to watch out for deflecting swats and redirect lightning, stuff like that, just in case somebody tries to change that towards their extra turn, which would be very unfortunate. Instance, a lot of control. I'm not going to go over everything because I'm not going to hit on the counter spells. We all know what most of these counter spells do. I'll just hit on the other ones and I'll hit on a couple interesting things, I suppose. Born Upon a Wind gives you flash speed. The deck doesn't really, I don't know if it really should operate at flash speed, but like I said, being able to play something like Enter the Infinite. Oh, I didn't even talk about Enter the Infinite. I'm sorry. Enter the Infinite, and then have flash is very good. So for 8 colorless and 4 blue, you draw cards equal to your library. Then you put a card from your hand on top of your library. You have no maximum hand size. So this is the big one with Malcolm. If you're able to hit, cast this, and resolve this, you can resolve this and then put Jace on top. And then you can pretty much win however you want to. Usually I like to give everybody a poison counter. Then I'm sorry, I like to play Laboratory Maniac. Then I like to give everybody a poison counter. Then I'll have no cards left in my library. I then try to play Flux Channeler and Jace, which might sound crazy, but remember we're casting the spell for free. So we are connecting with Malcolm, drawing our entire library, and we have everything untapped still. So we get to play these things out. Just extra protection, make sure we have everything. If you play a Flux Channeler and it resolves, you could even do that before, like play Labman, play Flux Channeler, then try to give the poison counter. Um, you probably want to give the poison counter first. That way, if Flux Channeler resolves, you can start proliferating in response. So you would want to play Labman, make it so if they make you draw from an empty library, you'll still win. Then you get the poison counter on and get Flux Channeler out. Then you could play Born Upon a Win or anything if people go to respond, and then you could start flashing out a lot of this stuff. Um, Free spells like Commandeer, Disrupting Scroll, um, Snapback, stuff like this. That's just free interaction that I'll still be able to get rid of the blue cards that are expensive in my hand and prolong the game. None of the other ones are that meaningful. Muddle the Mixture is there to be able to grab Narset's Reversal, Isochron Scepter, trade routes, or anything else like that. Remember that. I'm sorry, I didn't get to it yet. That's why I didn't say it. Narset's Reversal is 2 blue instant, copy target instant or sorcery, then return it to its owner's hand. You may choose new targets for the copy. So if you have this out and you have it imprinted under an Isochron Scepter, you can connect with Malcolm, draw a discard an extra turn spell, cast it for free, respond to that by Narset's reversaling that extra turn spell. It'll copy it, return the extra turn spell to your hand, and you get an extra turn. You go to your extra turn, and now you still have the Narset's Reversal under the Isochron Scepter, and you have the extra turn card in your hand, which allows you to go through and take infinite turns. We already talked about Prologue to Pheresis. Nexus of Fate is an interesting one. So you get to take an extra turn, and then if it would be put into the graveyard from anywhere, you get to just put it back into your library. So this alone technically gives you infinite turns because you get to take an extra turn, put it back into your library, and then you could go to your next turn, draw it, cast it. You have an extra turn, put it back into your library. There's probably something to it where you're able to put another card into your library and have like the 2 of them there, so that way you can hit with Malcolm infinitely for combat damage. There's still some tweaking with the deck, and that's probably part of what needs to be fixed or done with the deck, I suppose. Radstorm and Snare both are instant speed proliferate cards, which is very good. Being able to swing with Malcolm, connect, or right before, proliferate, put yourself on that 4th counter so that you could draw pitch, very strong. Plus more interaction. Being able to Radstorm the poison counters or different things, age counters on fish. There's a lot of weird niche scenarios that probably happen with this. So that's all with the instances. It's all interaction pretty much. Artifacts, it's all mana except for Isochron Scepter, which is there for Narset's Reversal. I'm sure that there are situations where you might put something like Prologue to Pheresis underneath it because you have a couple extra turns build up so that you'll be able to just give a poison counter, and kind of get it as high as you can get it until you draw into a proliferate piece. But it's really there for the Narset's Reversal. Imposter Mech is something we could use to clone a Bowmasters or just a really strong card. The One Ring is the One Ring. We know what it does. And Vexing Bauble is protection. Enchantments. clone, draw engine, and then Omniscience, which is, just about the card that you think of when you think of this commander, because it allows you to cast spells from your hand without paying their mana cost. So if you do get this onto the battlefield, congratulations, you have everything you could possibly imagine for free. And obviously, if you have something like Born Upon a Wind, you get to cast everything you want at flash speed for free, which is pretty crazy. And then trade routes, like we said, it's there for the pay one, bounce a land to its owner's hand, replay Mystic Sanctuary, put a land on top. That thing. As far as the lands go, there isn't really much to talk about, but I'll highlight each land briefly. Cephalid Coliseum can be used to make a player draw from an empty library with their Thassa trigger on the stack, but it also could be used to make us draw from an empty library when we have Lab Man out. So it's both a win condition and protection. Manamo can untap a legendary permanent. It's really good for untapping the One Ring. We're in a mono blue deck, so we can afford to have these lands that maybe you wouldn't run in a 3-color deck because you're considering if it's going to be too pip hungry in certain directions. Like maybe my deck leans more black and green, so I don't really want to have this in there. But we're mono blue, so we can afford to. Lazotep Quarry, you're able to use the bottom ability to exile a creature card and create a copy of it. This is really good for creating a copy of Laboratory Maniac so that you have a lab man out in the battlefield. This can also be a really strong play if you go to draw from an empty library and someone removes your lab man. I'm sorry. You cannot do that because it's only at a sorcery speed. Forget that last part. But still, being able to copy a Laboratory Maniac or a Flux Channeler so that you could storm off and kill everybody is incredibly strong. Even just something as a spell skite to give yourself protection. Like I said, remember, your big payoff is Enter the Infinite. So if you draw your entire library, you can put out a bunch of this stuff easily. Mistrise Village is there for protection. Mystic Sanctuary, like we talked about, infinite turns. See the Synod is an artifact which turns on Mox Opal. That's kind of the only reason it's really in here. Talon Gates is in here to be able to phase out something if we want to go to our turn, because if we're starting off our storming, we can just phase out a creature that affects us being able to take more turns and do extra things efficiently, and then we get to just go to our next turn, and it never comes back. And then Urza Saga, like I said, we're a monocolored deck. We can afford to play something like this and then just go get a piece of ramp or go get Vexing Bubble for protection. And then there's some other stuff if the idea of the deck and that interests you and you're thinking, oh, I kind of think maybe this would be better in the deck, maybe that would. There's a lot of things I'm considering. This deck is pretty early on. It's a deck I played casually for a while, thought it was too strong casually, kind of bin the deck, and got into cEDH. Never really considered it again. And I was watching a tournament, and someone just happened to be playing in the tournament. I saw the name on the screen and thought, well, that's crazy. I want to see what I can do with that. So there's, in mono blue, there's stacksy effects, control effects, different things. There's obviously Trick Bind and other counter spells. You can run Narset type things to try and slow the game down a little bit so people aren't running away with it. And Narset, I probably should just put it in the sideboard right now. It's something I'm heavily considering because stopping players from drawing a bunch of cards gives you more likely turns. And as you can see throughout this, there's more instant and sorcery casting, protective creatures, creatures that draw you a ton. There's the drifts I was talking about. Kitsa can combo with Dramatic Reversal if you want to add it, which Dramatic Reversal is also good with Isochron Scepter. So not a bad thing to add into the deck. You can run Thassa. I usually don't run Thassa just because it kind of freaks people out. Plus, people could see it, steal it, get told about it, and it's a little bit harder for them to win with something like a Laboratory Maniac, but I might include it in the future. Merchant Scroll was in the deck, but it's only for a blue instant, and my extra turn spells are mostly sorceries, so I just removed that. Augury is a card I'm considering because it is card selection and proliferate, so that's a card that might make it into the deck in the future. But as for the other cards, you can kind of read them. I'm assuming you know what most of these are. Paradoxical Outcome is one that's kind of interesting to me, but I don't think it's good enough for the deck. The artifacts down here are mostly control pieces that I'm considering, like Cursed Totem and Digger's Cage to be able to stop players. And Staff of Completion proliferates, so that's a big reason that it's in the sideboard. I tested Nykthos, but I didn't feel like I had that many situations where I had a decent amount of blue devotion, so I kept feeling like this land was kind of just going neutral. So I recently cut it. And Study is in here because there are different things you could do to infinitely tap your creature if you want to. But I'm not currently on any of it. Being able to use things like Kitsa, you could infinitely untap it with this enchantment on it and kill the table, but I don't know. Some of it's seeming a little bit too much cope for me. But as you can see right now, this is kind of the baseline idea for the deck. I've played about 10 games on it right now, and I've gotten 3 wins, which isn't great, but it does mean that there's something there. Like I said, the hardest part right now is the 1 toughness, and that's kind of something I'm looking at and battling with the deck. But I still wanted to make a video about it, talk about it, get it out there, let you guys see it. Maybe there's something that you guys see in the deck, or maybe you play it too, or maybe you're interested in how this pans out. But I wanted to make a little video and send it out. So I appreciate you guys watching, especially if you've made it this far. If there's any other commanders that you guys are interested in, let me know. I have over 200 lists on Moxfield. I'm always brewing and talking about different ideas, sleeving up different decks and stuff like that. I know eventually I'll be making my Glarb video for my deck list, but there's still a lot that I want to work out with the deck before I end up making it. So, all right, appreciate you guys. Have a good day.